Jesus says, I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. Well, the beginning and the end is, we understand the beginning. In the beginning, God. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. What about the end? The last book in the Bible is called Apocalypse, or Revelation, which means the unveiling, to reveal something. If I have something hidden, behind, if I'm disclosing something. For example, if I take this letter opener out of this sheath here, I'm unveiling it, right? That is an unveiling. And there's something about the way we are created. All of creation leans toward an unveiling of something that is unknown at the time. There's always something to be unveiled. And we have the beginning. We have the book of Genesis. We know where things started. We know where things start with God. But what about the end? We're constantly waiting for it to be unveiled. And of course, the unveiling is the last book of the Bible, the unveiling of Jesus Christ, the revealing, the revelation of Jesus Christ, the apocalypse of Jesus Christ, the unveiling. In the book of Hebrews, there's a place where it says that the Lord will take off basically the cosmos like a garment and unveil himself. There's something about the creation that causes us all to look forward to some kind of unveiling. And this may sound crude to some of you, but it is also why people, they want to see people take their clothes off. It's not just that. It's not just a sexual thing. It's this thing where we are compelled to see things unveiled, okay? Now, the problem with the Omega, the problem with the unveiling, is that it is necessarily a thing that transcends us. It is necessarily a thing that is beyond us, that is more than what we can currently perceive. I was just about to say something that left me. Oddly enough, the unveiling of the last book of the Bible, you open up to Revelation, it's the easiest book in the Bible to outline, the most difficult to understand historically. I know there's people say, well, I understand it just fine, but historically is the most disagreement over what to do with that book. It is cryptic, it is symbolic, it's lots of mystery in there. So we're constantly looking forward to what is this thing to be unveiled, okay? So you're constantly looking towards something that you cannot yet see, which means there is the means of interaction are going to be indirect. You're not going to be looking directly at the thing with your eyeballs, hearing the things directly with your ears. You're constantly dancing all around the thing and trying to piece together the vision of what the thing is before it's finally revealed, okay? There are some growth components that need to be considered. There's individual growth components. Paul said, when I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, and then shall I know even as I am known. Now abideth faith, hope, and charity, but the greatest of these is charity. When we see the thing, there's no need for faith, because we walk by faith, not by sight. And why do we hope for that which is already there? So once those things are there, the charity is the only thing that's going to be remaining. But there's this growth component about moving from being a child to being a man. Well, when you're a child, you don't understand the things that it's like to be an adult. You can only attempt to apprehend them to the best you can. In Ephesians 4, there is a group growth model where the edification comes from, looks like the fivefold ministry in Ephesians 4, 11 through 12. And if you were to ask in verse 11, where does the edifying of a body take place, or how? It is through these apostles and prophets, evangelists, pastors and teachers, etc., and so forth. Well, when you get to the last part, there's a transition part here, till we come to the unity of the faith and the knowledge of the Son of God, into a perfect man. something's supposed to happen. And unto the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ, that we henceforth be no more children, tossed to and fro, carried about with every wind of doctrine, but a sleight of men and cunning craftiness, whereby they lie in wait to deceive, but speaking the truth in love. Who's speaking the truth in love? Just these guys? No, we're going to see who it is. May grow up into him in all things, which is the head, even Christ. And by the way, that unto the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ, that's where the acronym FSI comes from. It is Full Stature Initiative after this thing. Speaking the truth in love, from whom the whole body fitly joined together, the head, even Christ, from whom the whole body, fitly joined together and compacted by that which every joint supplieth, according to the effectual working in the measure of every part, maketh the increase of the body unto the edifying of itself in love. Down here, every body is participating in the edification process, not just these folks up here. Everybody. So in order to have this edification process, it is a protocol. There is a protocol by which you must interact. You cannot be oriented toward a particular theology and do this protocol. You cannot, and so what we call an ideologue. If you're oriented toward a particular theology, like I believe in systematic theology, doesn't matter what kind, doesn't matter who wrote it, doesn't matter whether it's Calvinistic or not, doesn't matter. If you are oriented toward a systematic theology, if you have a statement of faith or a confession of faith, and you think that it's right and good and should be abided by and that it protects you, you cannot participate in the Ephesians 4:16 edification model. Those kinds of things are for people who cannot see clearly. This kind of edification is for people who can and who are trying to see clearly. So we're going to see multiple components that become involved with this regarding the protocol and with regard to a person's relationship with their own flesh or carnality, or what you could also call the ego. And now when I say ego in this video, I'm not just talking about being conceited or arrogant. I'm talking about the identity that a person has that they use to interact with other people in the world around them. How, and on one hand, that must be in place, or you couldn't interact with other people. On the other hand, it needs to be transcended or made transparent so that it isn't a hindrance to you being authentic, which is it's quite an undertaking to get there. In one of our previous videos very recently, we talked about the orientation of us toward God, toward others, toward ourselves, knowing yourself. And what we're talking about today is the sphere of influence toward others. How do we interact laterally, okay, in a dianoia with other people in order to get in order for that lateral interaction to facilitate knowing God better, knowing ourselves better. Because they all three have to happen. The sphere has to expand in all directions at the same time. It cannot just expand in one direction. It has to be in all three because it's a sphere, it's growing. Sphere of influence.